Hi everybody, welcome back. It's Milestone 3 for the Dweghom for the Conquest Slow League. I am joined once again by Leo from Para Bellum, who is guiding me through the building of this force. So, Leo, step one, we got the base built. Step two, we got dug a little deeper into it. Step three, I think it's time to change things up and add something a little bit fancy, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's right. So every milestone, we're adding some new rules and some new options, some new tactics,
Mm-hmm.
right? Milestone 3 is the same.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, we want to see something that Dweghom are quite good at, and that's magic. That's not something you usually see in Dwarven analogs. But for this milestone, we're going to be working with the Tempered Sorcerer.
Mm-hmm.
And like we said, tempered, like we said before, Arsonist is a plan for this list, and
Arson is always an option.
he is at the point almost
Mm-hmm.
of
Well,
becoming, yeah.
yeah, I'm seeing he's got like bellowing embers flying all around him, even in his weapon there. So, what exactly is he going to bring to the table? What makes him worthy to be in my army?
So first of all, Dweghom have some of the most powerful sorcery in
Mm-hmm.
the game, right? Which is a little. It's not exactly what you would expect, but it's the sorcerers are those that are literally channeling the essence of war
Mm-hmm.
through them. They're very destructive. We're just going to be playing with some really strong, horde clearing. We're just going to try and add a little bit of extra oomph and punch
Mm-hmm.
into our army, because especially the way other armies are built right now, that they have more of an emphasis during the early game. You need some things to help you clear out, enemy light regiments and really put some pressure on them before they completely overpower you in the early stages of the game,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're just bringing the bite back to them essentially with a sorcerer.
Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing he's probably going to have some very nasty range that I can maybe throw in with the ballista or something to actually just start casting fields of fire in front of him.
Literally, we're going to be playing with flame wall, and you're
Okay.
gonna like that ability quite a bit.
Okay.
And then we're going to be working with Inferno Automata.
Mm-hmm.
Now
Big boys.
they are light brutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the only and the fastest regiment the Dweghom have access to. Now the Inferno Automata are a restricted option for the Temperature Sure. They're not as good as, let's say, Avatara or like as Household Knights
Mm-hmm.
in certain aspects. But what they can do is that they're really fast. They have a march of 8,
Mm-hmm.
and that means they can really quickly gain ground and go against other light regiments and try and block them. You
Mm-hmm.
know, get them in close combat and make sure they you secure some flanks and and screen enemy regiments so they don't pursue your alliance and push your reinforcement line back. It's very
So
important that in your plan you want to make sure that your reinforcement line is as forward as you can get it, and you want to
mhm,
screen enemy light regiments to do that.
mhm. So I'm guessing these guys are probably going to sit out to a flank to sort of intercept their attempt to flank me, or is this something I would maybe block in the center so I can swing left or right?
Yeah, to be honest, I would run them as fast as I can in the middle, and I
Mm-hmm.
would see which is a greater threat, left or right, where I
Mm-hmm.
want, depending on the terrain, depending on where characters are. Like
Mm-hmm.
for example, you might see the beginning, let's say John coming at you with raiders with a blooded in there, and the
Mm-hmm.
blooded can do a lot of damage. So maybe I would try and put the Inferno Automata on the other block of raiders
Mm-hmm.
to at least block one of the two and try to wither down the other block with ballista,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you want to choose which one to screen, but the thing is that once more heavy stuff will come out, the Inferno Automata, they're not going to be able to hold their ground as well.
Mm-hmm.
But they although they're expensive, they're really important at keeping your reinforcement line as forward as possible by
Mm-hmm.
not allowing the enemies to pass through it. So that's important.
Yeah. Well, you see, I'm kind of wondering. I'm almost tempted to throw these guys out to a flank with the Flame Berserkers to actually use the ability we gained in the last episode to sort of demoralize them. Send the Flame Berserkers in, and if they survive, have the Flame Automata ready as like a backup, just to swing in tight on a flank.
Yeah, that's definitely doable. For example, you can first bring your it really is a little bit about timing,
Mm-hmm.
because you want to make sure the berserkers are quite slower as infantry, having march of 5, right? So what you want to do is that you want to make it so in such a way that they arrive at the same time. The fact that they're both light helps a lot because they can both come in from at the same turn. But it will require some smart positioning there. So you manage to charge them at the same time to an enemy. But it's a devastating combo and it can work really well. If you can pull this combo off, then you can also do it on the raiders with the blooded for John, right? And make sure if you hit it hard enough, and make sure you pull this maneuver off, then you can take out some really strong units, and that's a very smart approach.
Well, I'm just thinking, it's what I always do in games. It's how do okay, say you're a boxer, you go for a jab. Are you ready with the right hook?
Yeah, that's exactly it, and this is what Conquest really tries to play. It's a game that is not that complicated in terms of rules, but the complexity comes into the actual play, into the actual tactics that are being involved here.
It's one of the things I really like about the game is the way it plays, that your light units are there first, they're getting reinforced and then reinforced again. So you have that escalation as those initial skirmishing forces are milling through each other, dying down. If you've been able to sort of husband your resources and keep your forces up a little better, that gives you more to throw in to those later units as well. So it's a real resource management of how much do I take a risk on here, and if I'm getting beat up, what is my best option to actually sort of counterpunch back into the opponent?
Yeah, and what you need to pay attention to, especially, it's good to have a few more lights because the list. And again, I'm focusing a lot on the Nords, but this is where you have to be a little more knowledgeable on what the Nords do in order to fight them. So, for example, a Jarl being a warlord, what they will do surprise attack. Essentially, they say that all reinforcements for both players are harder to come in. You get a +2 unit. It's quite hard to roll for them. But the Nords have regiments that have flank that come in automatically. So what they're going to try and do is that they're going to try and hit you with their light regiments, right? And whatever has flank. And then for a turn, deny you reinforcements and hit you again. Right? So that's very important to look out for because you're going to get hit over 2 rounds with not much to respond. Because even when you actually bring your regiments into the game, they cannot charge the turn they come in. So essentially, they push you on your back foot like that. But now with Flame Wall, Inferno, Automata having more things during the early stages of the game, and what's more important with the Hold Ray as a warlord, what happens is that when your supremacy ability is that you count enemy hits as having 1 less point of cleave or 1 less point of armor piercing. So suddenly the Ogre that hit with a cleave of 2 only have cleave of 1, right? Or for example, if you do it when giants have Jotnars have a cleave of 1, suddenly it's like being hit by regular troops, right? So when in that crucial turn that you see your opponent activating surprise attack, you need to make sure you react and activate your supremacy ability to mitigate a little bit of that hit that you're going to be taking in.
Yeah, so it's basically I see he's winding up for the big shot and I need to brace for impact.
Yeah, so that's you keep that in mind, and you have to with Nords you need to keep in mind a little bit what they're going to try and do because with the other factions, with the Spires and the 100 Kingdoms, they develop their gameplay, their plan a little slower. They build up their presence on the field, but with the Nords, they're going to be at you as soon as possible.
So they're just coming at my throat. Got it. All right. Well, are we having to reshuffle the army again?
Yeah, we're gonna do a little bit of reshuffling here. So the first thing we're gonna do, we will, let me see, we will remove the Hold Ballista from the Ardent Caraway.
Okay, so that goes away from there.
We're gonna go to the Hold Warriors and edit their regiment, and we're gonna take it down to 3 stands.
Okay, done.
And then we're gonna go to the Ardent Caraway and add a regiment of Hold Warriors.
So Ardent Caraway, he's already selected.
He's selected, so we add 3 Hold Warriors. Boom. So essentially, we split the Hold Warriors into 2 regiments of 3.
And that's to keep our core troops with the heroes to keep it legal.
And then we'll see why. And then what we're going to do is we want to deselect the this. And essentially, we're going to we're adding a Tempered Sorcerer right there. we wanna add flame wall. So we click the gear button to the right,
Mm-hmm.
and then right on the bottom, under fire spells, we're gonna get flame wall.
Flame Wall for 45 points. Whew.
Yeah, it's
Magic is
pretty expensive,
pricey.
it's pretty pricey, but it's really good.
Mm-hmm. Now,
And
one thing
then,
we forgot to do is actually edit the name
oh, that's right. Yeah,
and
we need to
up
go
the
up to
points.
1,200 points.
1,200 points this time. Okay, cool.
So
Cool.
then we're gonna go, since we have the warband selected, we're
Mhm.
gonna add back the hold ballista and the
Mhm.
Inferno Automata.
Inferno Automata. There we go.
So
Okay.
a few things about the list.
Mm.
Now, what happens is that Flame Wall essentially is a spell that has scaling. It's harder to cast the larger the enemy regiment. However, it
Mhm.
inflicts 2 hits, and then it inflicts additional hits
Mm.
for the regiment's ranks. So the larger the regiment you fight, the more hits they're going to be inflicting. And
I
that's a
see.
very good additional extra little bit of damage. Now, here you're going to find yourself having a few options, right?
Mhm.
During the early stages of the game, you're going to have the tempered sorcerer in your ballista, and
Mhm.
that's fine for now because the ballista are quite tough, right? With a defense of 3,
Yep.
the tempered sorcerer can actually has barrage, as most casters do. So
Mhm.
if you're not in range for flame wall, that's fine. You can still use the character to
Yeah, I think
volley.
it's like a 20-inch range, isn't it?
Yeah, 20 range for volley. That's right.
Mhm.
And then later on, for example, if you see a vacant, like let's say, regiment of Thanes or of warriors, you can seek new escort into that
Mhm.
and bring the flame wall closer to the enemy lines and start
Mhm.
blasting your enemies even in combat. Right. So that's
Ah.
that's very important. That's a lot of additional
Mhm.
damage you can put out there. So that's very useful.
Yeah. Now, if I'm right, let me bring this army up again because I'm kind of tempted with the way the Tempered Sorcerer runs at some point to possibly try running him with the Flame Berserkers.
That might be. I think actually you can click on the tempered sorcerer.
Mm-hmm.
You can click, and you'll notice that if you scroll the way down,
Mm-hmm.
you'll notice that the berserkers are not part of the warband. So they're not going to
Ah.
be able part of the same warband. Of course, you can seek new escort into that,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you're not going to be able to start the game with the flame berserker being part of the sorcerer's warband.
Okay, so basically, Seek New Escort is during the game, if my unit's feeling a bit weak, I can have him port out and port into a new unit.
Yeah. At this point, with the Dweghom, you can afford, splitting your regiments down to smaller ones. You'll
Mm-hmm.
notice actually you're doing a little bit of the opposite of what other factions are doing. With other armies, we're trying to bolster them up,
Mm-hmm.
but with the Dweghom, we feel confident enough, and
Mm-hmm.
you're playing consolidated enough to have all these different regiments supporting each other. So for now, you can feel confident, right, that you will.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you see, it really makes sense to me because the Dweghom are that little bit slower off the start to have that little bit more tactical flexibility. So instead of having a big block that has to maneuver and take big chunks, I've got smaller units that are a lot more maneuverable. Even though they're slower, I can
Mhm.
actually have more options of where I'm deploying my forces to try and deal with the different threats.
Yeah, it's important to remember that the Dweghom are not slow because they have like that different characteristics than the other factions.
Mm,
It's just they're slow because they have access to different kind of rules,
mm-hmm,
right? And they have their own way of being tactically flexible,
mm-hmm.
and they don't need to be slow just because they look like dwarves.
No, you see what I mean. What I'm saying slow is that slower build up at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, you're very right. Yeah.
So having as things come in and having more chances to actually bring stuff in, say it's against the Nords where you're saying he can make it harder for me to bring reserves in. Well,
Mhm.
if I've got one massive block, I get one shot at that. If I have two smaller blocks, I get two shots at that.
That's right. That's right.
So that's where my head's at anyway.
No, that's very right. Especially combining things with a caraway and so on. Even a smaller regiment, it only really needs to clear out 3 stands
Yeah.
to put a dent into a large regiment, right? Into a 6-stand regiment.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get a lot more utility out of them. Definitely.
And if the worst happens and the berserkers do get a bit of a pounding on the way in, I can do that seek new escort. And even if I popped him in with something like a block of the Hold Warriors, they are still pretty damn tough whenever it comes to actually dishing out some pain.
That's right. That's very right.
Right. Well, that's Milestone 3. Is there anything else that we need to be covering? Is there anything in particular from this sort of milestone area that I should be worried about seeing turning up in the other factions, just for my own curiosity?
This is the point that your 100 Kingdoms are gonna have Household Guard at this point. You're gonna be seeing larger regiments at this point, being fleshed out. You're gonna start seeing, how other factions are more, they have a more equal distribution of regiments throughout the phase of the game, with a bit of the exception of the Nords, that they're more early focused.
Yeah.
You're gonna notice how at this point, how other armies are developing a faster presence on the board. And right now this might be a little bit difficult to handle, but you'll notice that as we move on and now as we're playing with more and more we have more options available to us, you'll notice how you'll be able to go through that break of point, after which now you're playing on your terms, and now you've worn down the enemy's forces, and now it's your heavies against their heavies. And I'm going to tell you that Dweghom heavies have the edge.
See,
when you get them at that point, things are already on the Dweghom's playbook. Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, I tell you what, get those comments in below. Tell us, how have you been building your forces? How have you been enjoying the Slow Grow League so far? Have you been enjoying, keeping up with all of your painting and stuff? I have been absolutely loving this so far. Like I said, get those comments in. Myself and Leo will move on, and we will see you for the next milestone.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.